April 12, 2026. A radio transmission cut through the darkness of the Strait of Hormuz. Two American destroyers, transponders deliberately switched on, were cutting through the world's most dangerous choke point. The response from Iran's Revolutionary Guard came in seconds. This is the last warning. This is the last warning. The U.S. ship replied calmly, "Passage in accordance with international law. No challenge is intended." That 34-second exchange, 34 kilometers of water, 2 nuclear powers, and the economic future of the planet hanging in the balance, just happened yesterday. And today, everything has changed. Because what is unfolding right now in the Strait of Hormuz is not just another military standoff. It is the most serious energy crisis since the 1973 oil shock. And its outcome will decide who truly controls the global economy. Let me show you why this narrow strip of water is worth going to war over. One number: 20 million. In 2024, 20 million barrels of oil flowed through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. That's 20% of all the petroleum the world consumes. This is not a regional supply route. This is the circulatory system of the entire global economy. Nearly $500 billion in annual energy trade is forced through a channel just 34 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. There is no plan B, no detour, no alternative route. 84% of that crude heads to Asia. China alone gets 1/3 of its entire oil supply through this single choke point. Europe receives 12 to 14% of its LNG from Qatar, all through this same strait. Tensions had been building for years. Failed nuclear talks in Geneva, a 12-day air war in 2025. Then came February 28, 2026. The United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, coordinated strikes on Iranian military sites, nuclear facilities, and leadership. Iran's response was immediate and ruthless. By March 2nd, the IRGC declared the Strait of Hormuz closed. But here's what most people missed. The strait was never completely sealed. Iran played a very clever game. They selectively allowed certain tankers through, in exchange for a toll of up to $2 million per ship. Meanwhile, their own oil continued flowing freely, averaging 1.85 million barrels a day. Tehran wasn't just holding the world hostage, they were profiting from the crisis they created. According to ADNOC's CEO Sultan Al-Jaber, at least 22 commercial ships have been attacked. 10 crew members have been killed. Nearly 20,000 seafarers are now trapped. Around 800 vessels, including 400 tankers, are stranded. These are not just statistics. These are human lives suspended between a regime's gamble and the free world's resolve. Washington did not wait. On April 11th, 2 U.S. Navy destroyers, the USS Michael Murphy and the USS Frank E. Peterson, made a deliberate, highly visible transit. They turned on their AIS transponders in open defiance of normal protocol. As maritime historian Salvatore Mercogliano said, "You don't turn AIS on by accident on a Navy warship. This was purposeful. They wanted the world to see they sailed through." Then the talks in Islamabad collapsed. After 21 grueling hours of face-to-face negotiations led by Vice President J.D. Vance, Iran walked away. Vance told reporters, "They have chosen not to accept our terms." President Trump immediately pulled the trigger. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. Secretary of State Marco Rubio drew the red line clearly. The Iranians are trying to set up a permanent system where they decide who goes through international waterways. That will never be allowed. Retired Admiral James Stavridis, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, estimates it will take 2 aircraft carrier strike groups plus at least a dozen destroyers and frigates to enforce it. A 3rd carrier is already en route. Thousands of Marines and paratroopers are heading to the region before the end of this month. The strategy is ice cold and brilliant. Cut off Iran's last remaining source of war revenue. As Robin Brooks of Brookings Institution put it, the U.S. can implode Iran's economy by shutting down its oil exports. That might open the Strait of Hormuz faster than anything else. China, Iran's biggest oil customer, now has every economic reason to pressure Tehran to back down. Right now, U.S. crude futures have jumped more than 8% to $104.80 a barrel. Brent crude is up 7.38% to $102.20. Gasoline prices in the United States have already spiked more than 50 cents a gallon. This is no longer a distant conflict. This is hitting your gas pump, your grocery bill, and your family budget. Sultan Al-Jaber of ADNOC said it best. The Strait of Hormuz has never been Iran's to close or restrict. Any attempt to do so is not a regional issue. It is the disruption of a global economic lifeline. The United Kingdom is now urgently coordinating with France and more than 40 other nations, many from NATO, to form a broad international coalition to reopen the strait. The free world has stood at this crossroads before. What is truly at stake is not just oil. It is the fundamental principle that no regime, no matter how desperate or dangerous, gets to hold the entire global economy hostage. The US Navy is already in the water. The coalition is forming. And the whole world is watching to see whether the Democratic Alliance has the courage to finish what it started. We will track every single development in real time. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest story on the planet right now, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next brief. Stay safe out there.